What is up? Welcome inside the voice of college football, Arkansas. I'm your host, Austin Robbie, and we've got a jam-packed show for you today. So we played another football game this past weekend, and I think it went exactly how most fans expected. It was almost a textbook Razorback football game. Lead, early part of the game, lead even late into the game, another fourth quarter lead, blown. LSU Tigers defeat the Arkansas Razorbacks 23-22. Man, just another week of disappointment. Like, at this point, we're just numb to it. We've been numb to it. But it's just crazy. It's crazy how it seems to happen each and every week. It's almost like the opposite of a movie, where it's like the movie script is so perfect in the way of the character gets down, they come back up, and they end victorious, and we're just like could not be more opposite. Where it's like we have that lead, and then we let it go. And just another week for that. So it's just crazy. This is the fifth loss this season out of our eight by 3 points or less. So like a lot of stats, especially for teams that have struggled in one score games, like that's the stat. It's a one score game. So anything essentially 8 points and less is considered a one score game. And we don't even have to go that deep, right? We can go 3 point loss or 1 point loss at Memphis, September 20th. All right, a little under a month later, Tennessee on the road. Bobby Petrino's the head coach, 3 point loss. A&M next week at home, 3 point loss. Mississippi State 2 weeks ago at home, 3 point loss. At LSU, another 1 point loss. And then if you expand it to that one score, right, or under 10, let's say, 7 of our 8 losses. So essentially anything but that Notre Dame loss has been a part of that stat. So pretty much every single loss we've had this season has been less than double digits, and that's crazy. That's just nuts. I'd love to pull up the numbers just to see where that ranks and where teams have really kind of been in. I mean, we're 2-8, most likely going to be projected to finish 2-10, and just to have that, I want to say bad of luck, but anybody that's been a Razorback fan their whole life, like myself, this just seems to happen to us, especially in football. So let's talk about the game specifically. We could talk about the woes of a Razorback football fan all day long, but when we talk about this game specifically, a 23-22 loss, let's get into it. So I like to do an offensive and defensive grade each week, like post the show. And so when we look at the offensive side of the football and talk about what I kind of predicted for them to do, and then ultimately what actually happened. I projected at the beginning of the week a 20-31 loss. And so for us to score 22, which was about the same, kind of paints the picture of where we're at offensively. And for me, I look at it, and I really, my main takeaway is the fact that when we scored 22 points, it wasn't even necessarily all on the offensive side of the football. One of the rare special teams play we've ever got this season, and it comes in this LSU game, and it starts the first points from any team in this game. We get 7, blocked punt. So really, the offense put together 15 points. Taylor Green had a touchdown in the end of the first quarter, a rushing touchdown, and then we had a Mike Washington touchdown in the third quarter, and we got the 2 point conversion. So we had 2 offensive touchdowns. We did have a missed field goal, and that was, towards the end of the game. We needed that to take the lead, and we weren't able to get it from Scott Starzik, and that was I'm trying to pull it up, 48-yard field goal. So tough spot there, but that was what it kind of looked like offensively. We had a couple turnovers. Mike Washington Jr. had a fumble on our opening drive, and then Taylor Green had 2 interceptions. He also had 4 sacks, and then he had 70 rushing yards and I believe a season low 165 passing yards. So back-to-back weeks, I didn't even know this. He actually had over 200 passing yards in every single game this season. In these past 2 weeks, he's had 194 in the Mississippi State game, and then off the bye, 165 against LSU. So just kind of a note on that. So he's not been as productive. He's the guy that's kind of been the engine for our team, as it is for many college football teams. Their quarterback being their engine for their offense, but him specifically and what he's able to do for us, both as a passer and a runner, him being this bad offensively is kind of been part of it, especially in a game where you only give up 23 points. You kind of want more from your quarterback. Um, but this is a spot where he underperformed, even not even necessarily relative to what he's like been having to do. Like, because he's had to have real big games for us to even have a shot to win. And today we didn't need that from him, and he still wasn't able to get close to that. So, a bit of a rough performance from him. That's ultimately to me why I'm giving the offensive grade a D. And because, like I said, I did project us to score around this many points. Doesn't mean necessarily it's a good thing though. But for those 22 points also to not even be all offensive, it was just a really rough day for the Razorback offense, and ultimately that's why I'm giving it a D. And there were a couple positives in there. I mean, Taylor Green was still able to add 70 yards on the ground, but and Mike Washington Jr. He's had a couple fumble issues at this point. You can call them fumble issues because he's done it a couple different times. But he's been just such a quality runner when he actually gets touches. He had 13 carries for 84 yards. He's been kind of a bright spot. But this offense, man, it just 11 for 19 passes. I mean, I'd love to see real quick on the time of possession in this game because we didn't uh, we didn't necessarily have a lot of 25 minutes to 35 minutes. So that felt about right. I figured they had a greater time of possession than we did. And so to see that, that's tough. And then on the offensive side, in the line, being a little all right. All right, we're back. Having some technical difficulties there. So back to the offensive side of the football. I mean, this really was just a disappointment for them. And 22 points is just not something we're up to par with. Post this game, we are still averaging 34 points a game, so we would have been even a little bit higher uh, prior to that game. But ultimately, all of that to say, and I don't know how much of that was able to get in there, but the offensive grade to me has got to be a D. It really was disappointing, and I'm looking forward to a possible improvement this next week. As these past 2 weeks, just offensively, I know we scored 35 against Mississippi State, but I was saying Taylor Green, his 2 games he's played where he's thrown less than 200 yards have been these last 2 games. So to have that poor of a performance over these last 2 weeks offensively, it's really been a struggle for him. In 19 passes, man, he hasn't thrown less than 20 all season. He actually hasn't thrown less than 22 specifically, and he's had majority of his games he's thrown 30 passes. So this was one where he didn't do that as well. But 4 sacks, an average of 8 yards a sack. That's typical for him. If anything, it can sometimes be even more than that. So offensive grade is a D. We're going to switch over to the defensive side, and I'm giving them a C plus. So I projected for LSU to score 31 points. And once again, LSU continues to score around 23. I believe that was their points per game going into that game. They hit it right on the money. They've only had one game where they've scored more than 25 points, and I pointed that out last week, and that was against Southeastern Louisiana. So I thought they were going to finally hit that FBS season high with 31, but they weren't even able to get to that, and that's really tough losing as well, knowing that that was something they weren't able to achieve. But 23 points for them. I thought we did fairly well. We kept them under 400 total yards, which is just kind of in college football is a little more like expected to be around those ranges of yards. 390 yards, which is what they got specifically, doesn't sound great, but still better than what we've done in the past with a lot of SEC offenses. So Van Buren's the one who really played the entire game. We didn't see Nussmeier He played fairly well. We kept him a lot more contained than I thought we would in the pocket as a runner, but he did have that 35-yard scramble, which was really tough for us. Other than that, we did a really good job of containing him. We got to him 4 times, which is not something we can usually say uh, on our defensive side of the football. But Boone, Dix, Shaw, and Sorey, all 3 of our linebackers and then Justice Boone were able to get sacks on him, so that's a big deal. And then the special teams play, which doesn't factor into the defensive side, but that really does help us there. And man, just a lot better of a defensive performance than I expected. 23, and knowing that also came off of what 1, 2, 3 field goals, and then we gave up 2 touchdowns, one of them being the one that got them the lead at the end of the fourth quarter. So I thought our defense outperformed our offense, which is never something you want to hear. Like if I knew that going into our game, I would have figured we lost, and we did. But it was another close loss, like we've endured each and every week. And I'll mention the stat again: 5 losses of our 8 losses have come by 3 points or less. 7 of them by less than 10 points or less than double digits. So don't want to spend too much on the game recap like we do each week. We do the game recap and we do the game to come. And I feel like I do a way better job of talking about the game to come. Some technical difficulties that extended this LSU talk for longer than it needed to be. But man, just having to recap an Arkansas football game this season has been brutal. So we'll switch over to the Texas game preview. But before we do, just a little plug for the show. If you go to vocfb.com/shop, you can go check it out. There's a team drop-down list. Arkansas is one of the teams at the top. And if you go check them out, take a look at the merch. If you are looking for a way to support the show, definitely contributing that way, getting a little something back for the money you put in. There's all sorts of things, cups, sweatshirts, stuff like that. So check that out, vocfb.com/shop. Arkansas, one of the first drop downs on the team item list. All right, let's talk about this Texas game. Horton's down a week. Texas right now, man, we're waiting to see what they'll be ranked in the CFP. But for them, as the AP poll, which has already comes out on Sunday, they are ranked 17 following their loss at Georgia. This is a team that's kind of been up and down throughout the season. And it started off on a down note for them, playing Ohio State, a game that, if I'm being fully honest, I thought they were going to win going into the year. A lot of people hating on Arch Manning. He goes 3 straight weeks, doesn't look great as they play pretty poor FBS competition. And then they have their first SEC matchup, and it's at Florida, and they lose. And Florida is in a spot where this really saved Billy Napier's job for a second. And to lose that game, a game they were favored by 5.5, it felt like they were going to lose the game, especially given just kind of how people were viewing Arch Manning at the time, because he had played 3 games against San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. So not a spot for you to play convincingly against bad teams. And they go in and they just get beat pretty poorly. The score made it look a little closer, 29-21. And at that moment, I think Texas Longhorn fans were distraught. I mean, 3-2, the 2 real teams you played all season, you lose. Arch doesn't look like Heisman Arch. And then there's the uptick again, right? So they then host 6 Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry, and they win 23-6, win just in convincing fashion. They were actually favored, surprisingly, in that game post those Florida and Ohio State losses, but they win that. They go on the road at Kentucky. They win in overtime. They beat Mississippi State in overtime. And even when they host Vanderbilt, I think still some people were skeptical given just the last 2 weeks of road victories, sure, but overtime victories against not too impressive of SEC football teams. And then they beat Vanderbilt at home by 3. And then this past week, after a bye, they went to go play Georgia, and they were 3.5-point dogs, and they just got mollywopped, 35-10. It was never close. It was 14-3 at the half, and then just also the fourth quarter just absolutely put it on them. Gunnar Stockton played a heck of a game, 4 touchdown passes, a touchdown run, and 24 for 29 is a heck of a day. But just a little bit about Texas. I'm sure anybody that watches this and watches college football knows head coach Steve Sarkisian. Right now they're 7-3. I mentioned their losses: Florida, Georgia, and Ohio State. The Ohio State and Georgia loss are fine. The score to the Georgia loss is what made it really bad. But to lose to 2 of what I anticipate to be the top 4 teams, I think, in the CFP when they come out, number 1 and number 4, I don't think there's anything too wrong with that. And so we'll see. Uh, More of the Florida loss is like the bad loss, and that one, if they could have back, man, they'd be in CFP contention. But right now they're not, and their life's on the line, and they're gonna have to beat us, which I don't think they will have a problem with. Then they're gonna have to go beat Texas A&M, and then still get lucky. So big game for Texas. They're really going to be probably looking forward to looking ahead to the Texas A&M game, so that's going to be part of it. But just a little bit about them offensively. Everybody knows Arch Manning, nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning. He's kind of had an up and down season, like I mentioned. He didn't start off well. He's right now at about 2,400 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks. Not a terrible stat line. Also 6 touchdowns on the ground. But this ground game, to me, as much as Arch has been disappointing, it's the ground game and the offensive line to me that have really stood out as well as being underperforming. Wisner, Baxter, both of them, man, they just have not been too great offensively. Wisner's got 375 total rushing yards. He doesn't have a game over 100 rushing yards. CJ Baxter has 162 total rushing yards. Same for him. Like they just haven't had quality play out of the running back position this year. I think something they were expecting to get with Baxter back and Wisner as the head back. Receivers have been a little underwhelming, but DeAndre Moore Jr., Ryan Wingo, Parker Livingstone, these guys have been fine. I honestly, surprisingly, after the way it started this season, don't think Arch Manning in their passing game is really the biggest issue on this football team offensively. Like I said, I think it's the running game. But guys to know, I kind of mentioned all of them. Arch Manning, everybody knows, but Ryan Wingo, Contravion Wisner, those two guys, the running back, the receiver and the running back, are two big names to know. And if you look at them, like I said, about 250 passing yards a game and only about 125 rushing yards a game. So they're 2/3 of their offense is coming from the passing game. And I think that's something that they would have preferred to be a little more balanced. And they've given up 21 sacks this year. So the pass blocking, it to me hasn't been as bad. 21 sacks is about 2 a game. But it's been really the run blocking and being able to run the football this year that's just been really disappointing. If we switch over to the defensive side for them and what they've been able to do this year, that's been their calling card to me. They're averaging 18 points per game given up, and that includes this 35-point outburst from Georgia. They had a 38 outburst from Mississippi State and 29 given up to Florida. But like even in their Ohio State loss, they only gave up 14 points. In a lot of their other games, I mean, they only held OU to 6. Vanderbilt to 31. Luckily, they were able to score them and win that game for them. But it's the defense, and it's a lot of those names that I'm going to talk about right now that have been the reason why this defense has been so good. Starts off on the defensive line in the linebacking room, specifically 2 guys. Colin Simmons, the edge rusher linebacker hybrid, who's got 9 sacks on the season. I think a person they were really expecting big things from. Again, kind of how he delivered last year as well. And then Anthony Hill Jr., which is probably their biggest name on the defensive side of the football. One of the top linebackers in the SEC last year. I think was considered probably the best linebacker this year. 70 tackles so far on the season, more solo tackles than assisted, and then 4 sacks. He's kind of been their big time guy in the middle, and even 2 interceptions in coverage, which you don't see all the time, and even 3 forced fumbles. So his stats continue to impress. But Colin Simmons as well, like I mentioned, 9 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, a big time player for them as well. So those 2 guys are going to be pretty difficult for us to handle. We've played teams, though, with significantly good defensive lines and linebacking rooms specifically. When you look at a team like A&M with Cassius Howell, and we were still able to have a productive football game against them. And then Tennessee's got Joshua Joseph, Auburn, Keldrick Falk. So this is not a spot where we're. Even LSU last week with Whit Weeks. These are teams we've played game in and game out and have faced the top talent at the edge rusher and the linebacker position. And obviously we haven't had enough success to win a football game, but we've still found ways to get it done offensively, even with these type of caliber players on the defensive side of the football. So that's a little bit about Texas offensively and defensively, a little bit to know about this game specifically. For me as an Arkansas fan, I knew that this rivalry, I don't know what Texas fans would call it, but this Arkansas-Texas rivalry was something that, started a long time ago. I got the opportunity to go to the game in 2021 that we won, but this was not a rivalry that was ever really present in my lifetime. So this is only our second matchup in the SEC. Last year We played them and lost. This is our first game in Austin, Texas since 2008. And if somehow we were able to win, it would be the first time we've won in 22 years, 2003. So we've beaten Texas actually in two of our last three matchups. 2021, as I mentioned, when Bijan Robinson was the running back there, and then Texas in 2014 in the bowl game when they were just they were not good then. But there's been 80 total matchups in this series over almost 100 years, I would guess, a little under 100 years. And man, we have just gotten destroyed in this series. So Texas is 57-23 against us, so over double the amount of wins to losses. So we'll see if we could carry the 2014 and 2021 victories into this weekend in this game. But I like to kind of give a most important hog each week, or the most valuable hogs, or people that I just put your eyes on the screen and really watch these guys this weekend. And I'm just going with essentially the best player on our offense and the best player on our defense this week. But Taylor Green and Quincy Rhodes Jr. are the two guys for me to watch. Taylor Green, I mentioned the Texas defense a little bit, but one thing I did not mention was how good their run game was compared to their pass game. So their pass game, kind of like their offense, where their run offense is terrible, but the passing offense is pretty good. It's kind of the inverse. Their passing defense is not too great, but their run defense is phenomenal. 83 yards a game. Taylor Green's going to need to be effective both with his legs and passing, and he's going to have the opportunity to as a passer because they're weaker there. But as a runner, if he's able to get out in space and on RPOs and in plays where he's able to keep the ball, he's able to threaten the defense and really keep them honest. He's going to open up the run game for Mike Washington, which is going to be necessary for us to have success this weekend. And then Quincy Rhodes Jr., he's going to have to really have an important game and just really get Arch Manning off balance and off platform and make sure he's really pressured and get him in spots where he can be uncomfortable and maybe create some turnovers on the back end. This is a guy that, even though he's been disappointing, I think, this season in Arch Manning, he really has still been one of their better offensive players. And I think it's going to start with that. I think that I would still consider guys in the interior of the defensive line and Sori and Steven Diggs Jr. to be really important in this game and stopping the run. But the running game, if they have no problem running this football, and Arch Manning has still a certain level of success, like they're going to have no problem beating us this weekend because their running game has really been poor, and it's been the lack of running game and then the focus on the passing game for Arch Manning that's kind of, I think, made them a little more one dimensional, a little more vulnerable to beat. And I don't think necessarily we have that opportunity to beat them this weekend. But I think if we're going to slow them down and really keep them contained, it's going to have to be for the passing game, and then just have the running game be mediocre and let them beat you there. So Taylor Green, Quincy Rhodes Jr., those are the two guys I'm looking at. And then this weekend, right now on a Monday afternoon, 10-point spread. Texas is obviously the team that's favored. They're at home. The over-under around 57.5. Time for my score prediction. I was right last week. I did not think it was going to be as close. I had an 11-point victory for LSU, and it was a 1-point victory, but I did think we would fall and lose to the Tigers. And this week, like my preseason prediction, where I thought we would lose to Texas, I'm going back right to that, and I've got us losing 31-38. I think we cover. We've covered a lot this year. I'd love to see. I'm not going to take the time to do it, but I assume we've done pretty well against the spread this year, or at least 500. I think it's going to go over. Last week was the game where I thought we'd go under. We did. I think we're going to go back over, a little readjustment. I'm surprised, honestly, that's at 57.5. I know we haven't been as well offensively, but like even in the Mississippi State game where we were really poor offensively, we still scored 35. So I would be shocked if we scored anything less than what we did against LSU. Texas defense is good. But if you look at a comparable offense to me, and I mean, at the very least, Mississippi State, who scored 38, Vanderbilt, who scored 31, Florida is not even a great offense, 29. And I mean, one of those, the Vanderbilt game specifically was a home game. So at home, they do well, better, or do better from a defensive perspective. I mean, UTEP scored 10, San Jose State scored 7. Like the Vanderbilt outburst was kind of one of the few and far between. They are good at home. But this is a team I think that's looking ahead. They play Texas A&M 6 days later. That's the game that's going to have to save their season. If they win that, I think they're going to really force the committee to think about quality of their wins, the fact that two of their losses are against two of the top 4 teams. So I think there will be a little of a look ahead, a little bit of a letdown from last week with the Georgia game. I know that it's going to probably motivate them, but at the same time, I really do think a look ahead game here where A&M's just so critical to any sort of success they're going to have this season. If they have any shot at the college football playoff, they have to win that game. And I'm sure they think we can handle Arkansas regardless. So that's my prediction, 38-31. I think Texas wins. I think we cover. I think this is going to be a lot of high-scoring game. But that's just my prediction. So we'll see what happens. We're the only winless team in the SEC. I think that, man, I like to be optimistic, but, man, I think that's going to stay that way this year. But please like, share, subscribe, as the ticker says. Turn on those notifications as well, just to be in touch and in tune with what we're doing here at the Arkansas Voice of College Football. We've got live shows every Monday around this time at 5:30, 5 o'clock. Next show is going to be next week, following this game, and then going into the rivalry weekend of playing Missouri. I don't know how many weeks in a row I've talked about the possible SEC victory, first SEC victory of the season, but I'll mention it again. Maybe we were able to do that this weekend and just absolutely shock the nation and really cement Texas's spot outside of the CFP. But honestly, even in the LSU game, as I watched it, I knew we weren't going to win. And so at this point, if I know and think we're going to lose, I guess anything could be better than that. So I'm going to try to view it from that lens. But playing Texas this weekend, 2:30 kickoff, somehow still on ABC. Texas must just be that much of a draw. So, as always, God bless.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.